Men of Reddit who proposed, and she said no. What happened afterwards with your life? My mother told my father no 3 times. On the 3rd time he got wasted at a local bar and basically started pouring his heart out to anyone who'd listen. Mind you, it's a very small village in the Italian Alps and my father barely spoke Italian and no one in the village spoke English, including my mother. Word got back to my mom about this sad American at the bar, so she went to find him, and she told him she'd marry him. My parents celebrated their 44th anniversary last month. She was an art major, and I had just joined the army. We had been lovers since high school. I asked. She said no. She wanted to get her master's. We were friends for a while, but we don't talk anymore. She works as a bartender I think now. I ended up getting married to my best friend. We've been married for more than a decade, and have a 5-year-old son. As a woman who was engaged, and the proposal was later revoked, it still stings a little 11 years later. When you're sure you're with the love of your life, losing them can really pop a hole in your life plans. We met in her home country of Germany, while I was traveling. I knew I was in love. We dated long distance for a while. Me flying to Europe, her flying to the US. I suggested marriage, so we could be together. She said no a few times. I didn't press. But I was patient, and not being pushy. I knew she was worth the wait. Then it hit her that's how we could be together. If we got married, we could live in a country together. The difficulties of being born on a different patch of dirt. A few years later, I'm still married to my best friend, and living with her in Germany. Not all no's stay no. Life goes on. My husband asked 3 times in the span of a couple months. We had dated for 3 years. He was ready. I wanted to graduate college first. Also, don't propose by handing your a ring while you're both in the car on the way to Burger King. I'm low maintenance, but put some thought into it. We lived together for another 6 years, until she changed her mind, and told me that I should ask again. We were engaged for over a year, and got married in 1991. We are still married, have 3 children, and are both still very much in love. My dad proposed to a woman who said no. My dad was a violent alcoholic, and she said she couldn't be with him, unless he got clean. Took him a little while, but he did it. He wound up meeting my mom through a matchmaker and they've been married 25 years. If that woman never said no to him, he never would have gotten clean. It was the lowest point in his life. But it all brought him to my mom, who makes him happier than ever. My dad talks to her sometimes. She got married to someone else, and they had a son who died from a medical condition. She had cancer. I said we should get married, because I had full medical coverage from my work. She said no. And over time we grew apart. Haven't talked to her in 15 years. Don't know if she died. So this actor, Patrick Moot, proposes to his girlfriend at a basketball game, and gets turned down. While on the giant jumbotron. Clip goes on YouTube. etc. etc. She tells him later that she turned him down because she thinks his stick is too small. So he travels around the world, documenting what other cultures think about penis size and penis enlargement, and made a movie about it called Unhung Hero. I've never watched it, but the title alone makes me laugh. This is the story of my parents. My dad asked my mom to marry him several times. She said no. Several times. One day my dad asked my mom to marry him. Yet again. She said yes. He freaked out, and left her apartment and dumped her. 3 weeks later he hated his life without her, and begged her to take him back and marry him. They were married 9 months later for 16 years, until my mom passed from cancer. They loved each other so much, and had such a deep appreciation for each other. That was 25 years ago. My dad has not remarried. No one will ever come close to my mama. Dated a woman for over 2 years and popped the question. First time she said I don't know. A couple months later I asked her again. She said maybe. I was pretty bent out of shape. But then I found out she was sleeping with several of my friends, so I dodged a bullet there really. I asked her right out of high school. but she wasn't ready. We stayed together. Went to college at the same school. Spent the first year in separate dorms. Then moved in together. Got married a few years later. Our 20th is coming up. My mom and dad were not married and wanted a kid and had me. My dad, being Catholic and Hispanic, decided he wanted to be married to my mom and proposed. She said no, because she hadn't been divorced from her first husband for very long and now had 3 young kids, and preferred to stay not married. He threatened to leave her, and got on his motorcycle, and started to drive away, until my mom chased him down, and gave in, leading to what my parents call a voodoo wedding the same day. My mom told my dad no when he proposed to her, even though they were already living together. She thought he was impotent, and it wasn't until she got pregnant that she said yes. In retrospect, I wish my parents had decided early in their relationship that they can barely stand each other. My mother turned my father down, but didn't outright break up with him. She just wasn't sure about the marriage idea. She valued her independence, and was nervous about commitment. No hard feelings, though. He called up the next day, when she'd had more time to think about it, and she said yes after all. They celebrated 32 years of marriage last month. She had said she wasn't really a fan of marriage, so I thought proposing non-marriage might be well received, and I wanted us to be together for the rest of our lives. So I asked her not to marry me. She said no. We have been married for 10 years. She said yes on the second proposal and now we are divorced. Edit. Reddit is such a weird place. All the carefully thought out posts and comments get zero recognition, and then this random off the cuff remark is my most liked comment. Glad you all got a kick out of it. For those wondering, I've been single for a year. I spent last night with a smart, beautiful woman and had a blast. Life is good. Second edit. Thanks mods. My life is now complete, and I can die knowing I made a difference. We actually got married. Moved in together. 2 weeks later, she moves out. Blocks me everywhere, and never gave me a reason. Shortly after I was served with papers. Now I'm divorced. That was last summer, and not sure where I'm now. Making work my main priority for now. I just want to know why for some closure. But that's too far gone now. About 2 years later I met my wife of 22 years. We are happily married. The one who said no got married. For the first time. Last year. And seems happy. My wife is way into me in ways that the former girlfriend never was. And I see my life as far happier with my wife than I ever was with the one who said no. She's not a bad person. I was just young, and in love with someone who wasn't in love with me. It worked out for the best. I'm glad she said no. He didn't ask again. And I had to ask him instead. We married last year. I was proposed to several times by men when I was living in the Middle East. I think they just went and found the next American girl to propose to. Not me, but a guy I knew. Proposed to his then girlfriend in a restaurant. Made sure to have a friend record it. She walked out when he popped the question and pretty much ghosted him. He started drinking. Found a new passion in gambling, and gambled all his savings away. He ended up living on money of the state. Works a garbage picker job now and almost set his house on fire at least 4 times, that I know of, by making food and falling asleep drunk. He was an interesting guy. Friendly to some, but the state has him is just sad. Hope at some point he picks up his life again. Haven't heard of him in years though, so no idea where he is now. I was the person who said no. We had only known each other for 3 months, and he was smitten. I was more cautious. I said no. I like you, but it's way too soon. He asked when would be enough time. I said maybe a year. He proposed again at midnight. 1 year after we first met. I said yes, and we have been together 8 years now. Edit. I know a year was still not a long time. But we had a long engagement, and didn't get married for another 5 years. I started reading this thread expecting to feel sad. But instead ended up feeling joyful, after reading so many wholesome stories. It was really bad for a while. Then it was really bad. Then it became really bad. Then it became bad. Then it was just blah. Then it was neutral. Then things started to get better. They continued to get better by me learning to be happy and me doing me things. I eventually found someone else. And things have been getting better for 20 years now. We were living together. I asked. She said no. I love you, but I need to think about it. I don't think I'm ready yet. Can you give me some time and ask later? A few months go by. I ask again. Same response. A few more months. Same deal. A couple more weeks, and then she says, hey, what do you think of us getting married? I replied, that's an excellent idea. Why didn't I think of that? Our 39th anniversary is next month. I asked a woman after almost 6 years together. She said no, and added that maybe it was time for us to go our separate ways. Wow. Shock. But life has to go on. About a year later I met a different girl and we were engaged within a year. We were both ready for marriage. That was 16 years ago. We've got 3 terrific kids. 2 boys that are exceptional athletes and a girl who's a brainy little nerd. The lady who refused me eventually got married, had a couple kids, and got divorced. But she got married again, and had another kid, and got divorced again. We completely lost touch several years ago. All I know was that I was in kindergarten or Mayo. Dim sum, but especially chun fan. It's my favorite dim sum dish. It's just shrimp wrapped in rice noodle with a sweet dipping sauce. But oh my god, is it delicious. Dim sum is generally pretty inexpensive and there's so many dumpling options to choose from. Depression and suicide attempt 10 times. We both really liked each other until I heard slot of text messages from a stranger saying, when do you want to meet up next day? I propose and she said no. I've already got someone else. She walked away, and I've never been the same person. I proposed to my husband several times before he did. I know this question was specifically targeting hetero males, but this applies. He stated he wanted to marry me, but not right away. We were together almost 5 years before he said yes. I wasn't going to give up on this man. She said, who the duck are you? Get out of my house.